A while ago, I saw this clip on social media. I believe it was on Instagram because the algorithm suggested onto me. It was about this lady who went into a house. She was filming it, and when she walked in, my God, in the hallway, right after opening the door, were all these dogs awaiting her, and they were all staring at her. Well, she left the place. At least I assume nothing bad happened to her. And this clip has been used often by other content creators to make funny videos and all of that. And I thought this clip is inspiring because normally, because I certainly believe that clip was staged. But anyway, normally if you would enter a house just like that as a stranger, you have all these dogs laying there, and the dogs don't know who you are in trouble. The dogs will jump on you, bite you, you'll die. Or if you survive, you'll be severely injured or even damaged physically for life. So, when dogs are awake and they don't trust you, if a bunch of dogs are in one location and they don't trust you, you're in trouble. Okay, let's say you have several dogs, or let's say you have maybe 5 or 10. I would say 5 to 10 dogs, a bunch of dogs somewhere. They're all asleep and it's night, and you walk in and you drop your keys by accident. Now all the dogs are awake. The dogs are upset because their sleep has been broken. So they're irritated. They're irritated and they see you. And dogs imitate each other's behavior. That's not a good situation at all. You will get injured physically because of that. You may survive. If you survive, you may have scars, or you may have to go to a plastic surgeon, undergo plastic surgery to recover some parts of your body. So what I'm just saying is that waking up sleeping dogs is not a good idea. Neither is it to just walk into a bunch of dogs that are not familiar with you. Now, there is this saying in English, let sleeping dogs lie. Or modern English would be, don't wake sleeping dogs. What is a sleeping dog? A sleeping dog is a conflict. For example, let's say you have Jeffrey. Jeffrey married Emma. But Jeffrey's mom never liked Emma at all. But Jeffrey decided Emma's gonna be is the love of my life, and had children together. Now, one of the children of Jeffrey and Emma, let's call her Jessica, is 10 years old. And despite being just 10 years old, Jessica can clearly see that grandma, that means Jeffrey's mom, is always a bit irritated when her mom is around. So she talks to this. She talks about this with her half brother, because Jeffrey had an older son from a previous relationship. The older brother, who's 15, knows about the situation, but because he doesn't want to overwhelm his younger sister, tells her, listen, let sleeping dogs lie. Leave it alone. Jessica didn't understand it back then, but she listened to her older brother, didn't say anything about it. And later, when she was an adult, she realized, it's good I kept my mouth shut about it back then as a 10-year-old, because it could have caused big trouble. Truth being told, Emma felt already that her mother-in-law had issues against her. Jeffrey knew it, but Jeffrey played to his mom, this is a woman I love. She's good for me. So this 10-year-old Jessica she grew up in a toxic situation. If she would have mentioned the fact that grandma's always angry around her mom, it would have caused an escalation of the conflict, would have spiraled out of control. Look, I'm not saying here that if you notice something is off, you should never report it. In this case, Jessica went and told her older brother about it. And her older brother guided her, telling her, okay, just leave it like this for now. Look, sometimes in life, not always, So it doesn't apply for all situations. Sometimes in life, you have to admit that something is off and remove yourself from the situation. That's it. If someone, especially a child, is being harmed, you report it anonymously if necessary. You don't get involved yourself, but you make sure it's reported so something's done about it. Just know that there are times you notice things are off and you should leave it what it is. Leave it what it is. Because sometimes addressing an oddity can trigger the dormant conflict that people are avoiding. For example, in the Netherlands, there's an article I read about this. There's an article about how the Netherlands, after the Second World War, reconstructed its national identity as victims of Nazi Germany as a whole. Even though during the Nazi occupation, there was a huge portion of the population enabled the persecution of the Ashkenazi Jews. Now, there were resistance fighters, absolutely. There were quite some of them. But it doesn't mean that the population as a whole were supporting those resistance fighters. A lot of them just went along with Nazi Germany. Now, after the war was over, a lot of Dutch Jews went back to the Netherlands because some of them fled. It was quite uncomfortable. Nobody wanted to talk about the war. Everyone's only talk about build things up again, move on with life. Nobody wanted to touch the issue. And later on, this national myth of the Netherlands as a resistance nation came up. And that national myth is still being propagated till this day. I grew up in the Netherlands, so I know what I'm talking about. So this article I read is correct on it. So why did they develop this resistance myth for the Netherlands? Because if it would have been, if it would ever be addressed, what really was going on, it would cause a lot of problems today. Well, today a lot of people already are talking about it, about this resistance identity that was projected on the Dutch population. But just so you know, back in the 1950s and 60s, a lot of Dutch Jews didn't even want to address what happened. Later on in history, it was being addressed more and more. But even then, it remained uncomfortable because how are you going to live with people that allowed a lot of their own to victimize you in such a way? It's quite uncomfortable. Even till this day, mentioning that period is quite sensitive. It triggers a lot of sad emotions. It triggers a lot of anger, whatever. Now, I just want you to understand this. Sleeping dogs are conflicts. Someone, or often, it's not just an individual, a group of people failed you or failed someone else. There's a failure on the part of the community, but nobody wants to address the failure to the community because the failure involves their loved ones, parents, children, uncles, aunties, cousins, or family-in-law, or just people they grew up with. Because the failure includes people close to them, they don't want to admit it. They'll make excuses for the failures, or they even flat out deny that the failure even happened. Or they will try to blame the victim or the people who were damaged by the failure as if they brought on themselves. But actually admitting the failure happened is something a lot of people don't want to do, because that means they have to face the people around them and realize, 1 minute, if you failed those people that way, you may fail me too. Or you may have been failing me already. So whenever there's a failure in a community that people don't want to address, it turns into a frozen conflict, something people prohibit you to talk about. For example, it can be that a construction company used cheap materials to construct a bridge that would be used on a daily basis by the public. The construction company did this to save money. They were greedy. And guess what? There were policy makers who knew about it and kept silent. 10 years later, the bridge collapsed. Several people died. Who's responsible for them dying? The construction company is responsible, but also the construction workers who noticed something was off, and the policymakers for not examining everything properly. But guess what? There were rumors for the past 10 years that there was fraud going on with the construction of that bridge. But nobody looked into those rumors. So in this case, the community failed. And because of that, several people died. Because those several people died, it has now become a criminal neglect on part of the public. Everyone's pointing fingers at one another. Oh, it's the construction company. Oh, it's those workers over there. Oh, it's the one who gave the permit. Everyone is pointing fingers at one another. Nobody wants to admit we as a community failed. So the bridge collapses. Very quickly, they close down the bridge. They redirect the traffic, and nobody even talks about the bridge anymore. And at some point, even demolish the bridge and the road over there. So let's say now, 10 years ago, you were a tourist over there, and you passed on the bridge, and you took some pictures, and you shared the pictures on social media. And now, 10 years later, you're going to come again to that bridge. And you see that, the bridge is gone. Even on Google Maps, you see there's no road over there anymore. So you think to yourself, don't a minute, this is a picture I made 10 years ago here at this bridge. The bridge was quite strategic. You could move from place to place very quickly throughout this bridge. How come they demolish this bridge and redirect all the roads? When you talk about it with your friends, they agree with you, this is quite weird. Why would they do that? When you're there, talk to locals, everyone asks, bridge, what's bridge? We don't know what you're talking about. Even people you met 10 years ago at those clubs, at the cafes, at the tourist attractions, they still remember you, but they can't remember any bridge. You think, what the heck's going on here? What's everyone pretending that this bridge never existed? Even though I've proved it existed because I was there. Let me tell you why. That's a sleeping dog. That is a frozen conflict. Frozen because people don't fight out the conflict. Imagine you growing up there, and now you need to admit that your parents, the people around you, people at school, everyone there is criminally neglectful. You're going to think, why should I trust these people? If you realize that people there cannot be trusted, you may end up depressed. You end up depressed, it's going to have other issues on you. Let's say multiple people in the community get depressed. Now you have an epidemic of depression in the community, or maybe not community, maybe in that area. That epidemic of depression, because we can't trust one another, is going to lead to mental breakdowns. You see what I mean? It's going to escalate more and more. And now people don't take responsibility for that either. So what I'm saying is, look, when things don't add up, you admit it to yourself. If there are people being harmed, especially children, you report it. Something's done about it. If you don't see directly people being harmed, but you know something's off, talk to someone you can trust, someone is trustworthy. And if that individual hints to you, you better leave this alone, leave it alone. Or if you notice that even when you hint towards what's off, people kind of look angry at you or act like you're crazy, just leave it. These people are not innocent in the truth. They don't want reality. They just want to escape. They're delusional. You mentioning that thing that doesn't add up, it will lead to it will trigger escalation. Who are they going to blame for it? You. Then all of them will come after you. Simple as that. I'm not telling you to be a coward and just enable bad things to happen. I'm telling you, assess and examine when to open your mouth and when to keep it shut. Because once sleeping dogs are awake, they will not lie down again. Once a frozen conflict is triggered again and is playing out, there's no way to calm down the situation. People are going to get hurt. Some may even lose their life because of it. All right? So, what do you do when you notice sleeping dogs are awake? Very simple. Admit that the conflict is escalating. Admit that it's quite sensitive. And also admit that you need to get out of that situation as soon as possible. Was it for now? Keep on growing in Christ and be at peace.